So I wanted to display in-game text for a VR project that I'm working on, and I realized that there isn't really a great way to do this in Unreal Engine. One way is to use widget components, but it doesn't really work if you want to display a lot of text because it's really heavy on the game thread. So I started exploring using Niagara Systems instead. The problem is, there isn't any built-in way to do this in Niagara. There's no way to directly input a string, and so you always have to come up with some sort of way to encode your input string into a Niagara data type. The damage number system in the Lyra starter game does this by taking a float value as input and uses arithmetic to calculate the UVs and how many particles to spawn. This works if you just want to display numbers, but if you also want to display other characters, you'd need a different solution, which can get a lot more complicated. The other problem is that you have to manually create this font texture, making sure that every character is in the right position based on whatever method you're using to calculate UVs. What I'm trying to say is that doing something as simple as displaying text in Niagara ends up being a lot more complex than you'd think it should. I wanted a solution that would make this whole process easier, and so I decided to build my own. I ended up with something that I thought other people might find useful, and so it's available for free on my GitHub as a plugin. The plugin is called Niagara Text Toolkit, and the main idea is to work with font assets and strings directly. Unreal's font assets typically default to a runtime mode which uses vector fonts, but they also have an offline mode. This mode precomputes a texture for the font, and it also generates a characters array with the UV coordinates for every glyph on the texture. So I created a Niagara data interface that lets you input a font asset and an input string directly into Niagara as a user parameter. In C++, the data interface extracts the characters array and texture size, and calculates UV coordinates for every character in your input. It exposes these with a getter in Niagara, which lets you get the UVs for each individual particle. Then to display the right character, you just have to pass this UV info into your material and sample the font texture. To get this font texture, the plugin includes a scripted asset action that extracts the texture for you automatically. But it doesn't just stop there. The data interface also handles calculating positions and sizes for each character. Just like the UVs, it calculates particle positions and character sizes in C++ and exposes them in Niagara. It takes into account new lines in your input and also gives you options for text alignment and spacing. So with this setup, you're free to add any font asset you'd like, type in any string, and everything is calculated for you on the fly. This approach gives you the great performance benefits of Niagara while still being very flexible and easy to set up. And since the characters are just normal particles, you can animate them exactly how you would in any other system. The plugin also includes a Niagara module to handle spawning. You can choose between different spawn modes to spawn text in batches of either characters, words, lines, or the entire text at once. I've included a few pre-made systems that you can use directly or as examples. Like I said, the plugin is completely free and open source on my GitHub, where you'll also find documentation that goes into more detail than I did here. If you'd like to support me, consider wishlisting my game on Steam. I hope you guys find this useful, and if you end up using it, let me know what you think in the comments. If you find any bugs, submit them as issues on GitHub and I'll see what I can do. Thanks for watching.